This is the darkest Yoshi story yet. Subscribe to Nintendo Land and support them.
Book looks like a harmless game for children, and in fact, a lot of it is. And for the most part, the story isn't anything super interesting. It starts off with Bowser Jr. looking for a specific book in a giant stack of books, which seems to be in his dad's library, somewhere in the castle. Now, for some reason, he's looking for this certain bird called the Bewilder Bird. So he finds an image of the bird, which looks like it's flying near an island very similar to Yoshi's Island. So he takes off in order to find him. But Bowser Jr. uses the magic monocle that comes along with the book in order to research the bird a little further, and he ends up getting sucked into the book. The book then crash lands on Yoshi's Island, where he introduces himself as a sentient being called Mr. E, but he never tells the Yoshis exactly who he is or why he's a sentient book and why he has tons of seemingly sentient creatures in these pages that the Yoshis can jump in and explore. I mean, it seems pretty silly that this whole game story is, hey, there's a book that wants to learn more about the creatures in his own pages, so he has you jump in and explore them. That doesn't seem like much of a story. That's because there's more to the story than it seems. We are led to believe that this is just an adventure of us learning about these creatures. And apparently there's not much else to this than the occasional running across Bowser Jr. and Kamek and saving them from time to time. Because this is where the story begins to get a little weird. Bowser Jr. actually runs into Kamek while in the book for the first time. Yeah, this is the first time Bowser Jr. ever has seen Kamek, because he responds by simply saying, "Who are you?" and
Oh, okay. So I saw people in the chat talking about how Kamek went into the book when Bowser was Bowser Jr. or when Bowser was a baby. So this is Bowser Jr., which is Bowser's son. And Bowser's son has not met Kamek yet.
What a weirdo when he first appears in front of Bowser Jr. and Yoshi. So believe it or not, this is one of the first encounters we ever have of Bowser Jr. and Kamek working together.
That is awesome.
Which in itself is pretty significant, but we'll talk about this more in a bit. Once we find the Bewilder...
Okay, but one question though. Is it the same, like, is this lore connected to the other lores? Like, for example, if you watch the movie, or if you played any of the other games, has Bowser Jr. never met Kamek, or is this before they met? Like, this is how they met. That's one thing that I'm confused on.
Bird and finish the first 6 chapters of the game, we get a crazy lore drop from Mr. E. He just finally decides to tell us who he is. He says his story begins when the moon fell from the sky a long time ago.
I forgot about that. And we just played chapter 10, which is when the moon fell. In the movie, they had clearly already met, so it could be backstory. So this is before the movie and before they met.
And when the moon hit, it left everything in ruin, destroying everything and probably killing everything, which is pretty insane. He talks about how a professor had a foresight to predict this, so he created this otherworldly compendium, being Mr. E, in order to conserve all the creatures of the world. And they had to be saved with such urgency, he never had time to learn anything about these creatures. He just slapped them into the pages and was stored away. Now, I'm not sure where the professor put this book in order to protect him from the moon crashing into the Earth, but that's a pretty dark story, and it's a story that we heard from another game this year. Spoilers for Pokemon Pokopia.
Oh my goodness. Yo, they're connecting it with Pokemon? No way.
We learned the same exact thing happened in that world, where the world was being hit by apocalyptic disasters, and they had a project to preserve the Pokemon in this digital world, where the humans would take off to find refuge elsewhere. We didn't know the Pokemon would escape the digital world one by one and take over the post-apocalyptic Earth. We've also seen similar situations like in the Splatoon series, so for some reason Nintendo has an absolute net.
Yo, you know what would be so awesome? You know how Nintendo has Super Smash Bros? And Super Smash Bros is a bunch of video game characters coming together to fight each other, right? What if what Nintendo is trying to do, especially with the movies, but what they're trying to do with the games is they're trying to combine the lore and make it into one universe. It's the NCU, the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. Oh, no, that would be the movie. So the NGU, Nintendo Game Universe. That would be so cool.
For post-apocalyptic Earth. Are they trying to tell us something? Now that's already pretty dark, but the second half of the game is even wilder because we learn a little bit more about this certain moon that crashed into the Earth because we're going throughout the events technically within the storybook.
It was the Crazy Daisy.
Look at the background here. Does this moon not look a little suspicious to you? For one, it has 2 eyes and a mouth, and it seems to be attached to some type of giant beanstalk or vine that's coming from Earth. Now, the entire final chapter, chapter 10, takes place on the supposed moon until it zooms out and shows you that this doesn't look much like a moon at all. It looks more like a seed covered in a white substance and also has glowing eyes and a mouth, and that vine is still going through it. But it's our time to investigate now. What actually is this giant moon? Well, Yoshi uses the Bewilder Bird in order to transform into many different various things that he's had in the past, like this drill hog, where he's able to drill deep into the moon's core. Until we reach the core and find out that this doesn't really seem to be a moon at all. According to Professor E after the fight, this is a giant crazy daisy that is attached to the stem of a giant crazy daisy tree. So you're telling me one of the cutest, friendliest looking creatures in the entire Mario universe is single-handedly responsible for crashing into the Earth and causing an apocalypse? This thing? Now, even during battle, it shows the core yelling in rage, which causes the giant sprout of the Crazy Daisy to break off of the branch and start hurling towards Earth.
So it's my fault because I destroyed the core. So are we replaying what happened in the past, or are we creating what happened in the past? Like, is it a loop? Like, what's happening in the book right now seems like is what happened in the past. So did a Yoshi in the past make that moon fall? That'd be insane. Let's listen to this guy's theory.
Now, it seems like Mr. E doesn't just have the ability to save creatures, but he also can save events as the exact same event unfolds. It replays essentially what happened to Earth so many years ago, but this time the fate of the book is at hand. Not necessarily the Earth this time, so yeah, it's smaller scale. It's also funny that this thing resembles Void Termina from Kirby Star Allies, like exactly, which was like the destroyer of worlds. This is a
We had a Kirby creature, so it might be connecting because the NGU, the Nintendo Game Universe, is starting to form. Mario, Metroid, Pikmin, Star Fox all have references each other, and especially with the Galaxy movie, it's canon that they all live on the same galaxy. Just different planets, so the lore's connected. Yo! If Nintendo really does this, if they actually connect all of the universes together, just to lead to like a new Smash game, that will be absolute peak.
Yoshi game. Now, one of the only descriptions we have of this thing is apparently the core is able to consume and devour the essence of other creatures. That's why it's able to change form and manipulate reality on the spot. So it seems like this core is actually a sentient and evil creature with evil intent in mind. And very well could have purposely wanted to crash itself into the Earth in order to copy the essence of all the creatures it possibly kills. This is pretty daggone dark for a Yoshi game, that there was an apocalyptic event that happened all because of a crazy daisy. But thanks to Yoshi and the baby Bewilder Bird, he's able to stop the core from succeeding at least this time in the book's retelling. Which means all the creatures inside of Mr. E are now completely and entirely safe. But after completing the game's bonus pages, we get more information about this creature. It's listed as the tallest of trees, where it's pretty much just a giant crazy daisy seed at the top of a tree. These stalks can grow extremely tall. We'll even see it in one of the bonus levels. Now it states that...
That was a terrible level. That was the cloud one. Actually, this wasn't that bad. The terrible level was the spring one, and then the bug catching one.
Levels. Now it states that the face of a crazy daisy plant can even reach the upper atmosphere before it has to break off eventually in order to spread its seeds back on Earth. So perhaps it didn't necessarily have evil intent behind it, that's just how these crazy daisy plants work. It just got too big and eventually it's going to fall off its root. Now there's an entire space stage in this game with space creatures and even one little astronaut in one of the stages. Well, there's actually lore behind that because apparently aliens from another planet set up on the moon in order to study the inhabitants of this planet, Earth. It explains why some stages have interactable UFOs, but they would abduct some of the creatures just to run some tests and check them out. And we've already experimented with a lot of these creatures from that chapter, like the Blorp, the Eliti, and even the Cuttlefish. But after sensing that the moon was going to fall down to Earth, they completely evacuated in their UFO. And this is where we learn about the professor that actually made Mr. E. It says among the otherworldly visitors was a professor who specializes in mysterious creatures. His heart broke for the beastly beings below, knowing they would meet a terrible fate once the moon fell. He became determined to save them. Knowing the moon could fall at any moment, the professor worked tirelessly to preserve as many of the mysterious creatures as he could. He toiled on the surface to the very last moment, and it states that once the moon fell, he could not be found. Now in fact, we actually get to see this professor.
He could not be found. Do you know why? If you guys just saw my chapter 10 playthrough, you know why. I accidentally ground pounded him. I'm sorry, Professor. I killed them.
In that last chapter on the moon, well, the supposed moon, you get to use one of the UFOs in order to float around. And up there, you'll notice there's an astronaut in a spaceship flying around as well. You can actually abduct him and push his space shuttle into the UFO where he'll fall out. And you can use him in order to open certain gates in the level. So perhaps when he went back to save the creatures with the mysterious book, he was out of time to escape himself. He kind of sacrificed himself, which also trapped him in the book this whole time as a creature. Now, I'm sure he can leave now if he wants, thanks to the magnifying glass, the way Bowser Jr., Kamek, and Yoshi does all the time, so he's not necessarily trapped, but he has been in the book for a very long time, probably with Kamek as well. We can also once again see that island that's very reminiscent of Yoshi's island in the book, and the giant seed crashing down into it. So perhaps Yoshi's island once existed a long time ago with all these creatures, it was then destroyed and then rebuilt by the Yoshis or a future race. Now, like I said, as far as Yoshi games, that's definitely the darkest story we've ever had. Every single Yoshi game is pretty much the same. It's Yoshi versus Baby Bowser in some capacity. And this is where things take another weird turn. Remember when we said at the very beginning of this game, we find out that Bowser Jr. doesn't even know who Kamek is in this game. Well, when Bowser Jr. and Kamek escape the book, they head back to Bowser's castle in order to tell Bowser Jr.'s dad about everything that happened. And upon seeing Bowser, Kamek is in complete shock. Kamek then begins to start crying and states, "Lord Bowser, how long have I been gone?" So this game's story—
That makes sense now. Because Kamek got stuck in the book when Bowser was a kid.
Story is implying that Kamek and Bowser Jr. never met. This whole time he thought he was working with Baby Bowser like he normally does. He must have been stuck in that book for a very long time. This is actually kind of sad. Bowser and Bowser Jr. laugh about it, but Kamek is very much saddened by it. He can't believe that the baby Bowser that he worked to protect all these years is now a grown man and also has a son of his own, which is a pretty dark and weird twist for this game. So that instantly raises questions on the timeline of this game. With this being one of the first times Kamek has ever met adult Bowser, we could be looking at a gap where Kamek got stuck in the original Yoshi's Island and didn't get released until around the time of Super Mario Galaxy. Now, the book only gives us some slight information.
Okay, so I don't know the timeline, but so Yoshi's Island until Mario Galaxy, I don't know how long that's been, but I'm going to guess at least like 20 to 30 years. That's insane.
On what happened with Kamek being sucked in a long time ago on accident and Bowser not having anything to do with books, so he didn't mind reading and he never went looking for Kamek, which is actually pretty sad. It wasn't until many years later where Bowser's own kid had a suspicion for this bewilder bird, which had him accidentally bump into Kamek during this whole thing. So was that a pure—
Isn't Yoshi Island from Game Boy Advance? I don't know. I didn't get to play it. I didn't have an Advance. But if it was, I wonder if it's real world time, so like when that game came out in the real world until Galaxy, or if it's some kind of lore in the games for the timeline. I don't know.
Luck that Kamek was even saved from this book. I don't think Bowser purposely left Kamek there or even knew about it, but still, it's kind of sad that no one bothered to check on where Kamek was.
That is super sad.
Depressing in a way. This is a lot to dissect and unpack there, and I'm sure we'll do it in a separate video, but either way, this is definitely dark for Kamek, man. I couldn't imagine. I think I'm just shocked more than anything at the direction that Nintendo allowed Goodfield to go with this game's story and lore with its characters. It actually was darker than we ever thought it was going to be.
And also weirder because we had a whole level where they had to breed. What?
Like I said, there's probably some stuff that I missed and things that I want to dive into, so if you found anything, definitely let me know in the comments down below, because this story is kind of crazy for a Yoshi game. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are super close to 400,000 subscribers. You guys can make that happen today by leaving a like and subscribing. Let's see how many people we can get to subscribe from this video alone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you all have a blessed day. See you guys.
Go support this guy. This guy had a really good lore video. Nice. Based on my understanding, it seems like this is a story that happens before a lot of the games then, because Bowser Jr. meets Kamek for the first time, and then we also get some lore that Kamek was stuck in a book for many years because Bowser was a kid when Kamek disappeared, and now Bowser has a kid. I don't know how old Bowser is, but if Bowser was a kid, and let's say he's like 30s right now, then that'll be like 20 to 30 years. Insane. This is awesome. I like learning more lore.